Amy, let me tell you about a magical place that is so exactly designed to be enclosed space, year-round fun for the whole family that I bet you already know what I'm going to say before I even say the name. Let's say it together on three. 1, 2, 3. Great Wolf Lodge. You got it, Amy.
My kids loved Great Wolf Lodge when we went. You probably already know that it has a huge indoor water park with a wave pool, lazy river, a bunch of massive water slides. But then your pack can hit the other attractions because wait, there's more.
Great Wolf Lodge has adventure-packed attractions like Magi Quest, a live-action game kids can play throughout the lodge, plus the Northern Lights Arcade. Spent some quality time there, so your kid who loves the lazy river and your kid who loves fantasy games will both have a great time.
Great Wolf Lodge also offers great dining options and complimentary daily events like nightly dance parties, all under one roof. Unpack the car once and you're settled in to have fun. And with 22 lodges across the country, you're always a short drive away from adventure.
We've both had such great times at Great Wolf Lodge, so bring your pack together at a lodge near you. Learn more at greatwolf.com and strengthen the pack. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Fresh Take from What Fresh Hell, laughing in the face of motherhood. This is Margaret.
And this is Amy, and today we are delighted to be speaking to Ash Brandin. Ash is a middle school teacher and gamer. They bring their experience as an educator to their Instagram page at The Gamer Educator, where they help families better understand and manage technology to benefit their whole family. Welcome, Ash.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
You were specifically requested by several of our listeners, and I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with your great work on Instagram. But tell us a little bit about The Gamer Educator and what it means to be both of those things.
So my page, The Gamer Educator, kind of came to be because I, for a long time, have been someone who has often, always loved video games in a pretty casual way. I wouldn't say it defines my identity, but I enjoyed them. And then when I went into education, I thought, this is something I love. I know it's something that kids love. And maybe I can really draw on that and make my teaching better. And I pretty quickly realized that that was not necessarily a conversation that a lot of other educators necessarily wanted to be having. And that was kind of what originally got me into this work, was really coming at it from the educator perspective, trying stuff in my classroom, experimenting, and then kind of talking about it from that perspective. And I didn't really go into the social media space until in the midst of the pandemic, because I wasn't able to go out into public spaces, like conferences and conventions. And I kind of naively thought this is kind of the hesitance I'm seeing, that's just an education thing. Other adults, they wouldn't have this hesitancy because they have kids and they see potential value of games all the time. And then I quickly realized that's not true. And that many families are struggling in many ways to make sense of these things. And so that's when I kind of pivoted and thought, okay, I need to be addressing kind of the concerns I'm hearing and really helping people understand, why should we be looking at games not necessarily as a bad thing, but as something that could be something we draw on, something that is a part of our kids' lives without necessarily being the center of their lives, and finding that balance. And that's kind of how the Gamer Educator came to be, and kind of what I use when I'm my central tenet when I'm trying to focus what I'm doing on content is it can be part of their lives, not the center of their lives, and it should benefit whole families.
Can we start, as we like to do, with some definitions? Because I feel like some of the language gets very blurry. There's games. There's what people refer to as games and educational games. And then there's this kind of more generic term of screens and screen time. And can you tell us where you make those distinctions? It's kind of a big question, but are we talking about games as different from educational games, as different from generic screen time? Are they all different things?
So how I think about them is probably going to be different than how other families think about them. And I don't think the way I think about them is right. I think that, other families are going to think about this however they want to, and that's fine. If you want to break it down, it's totally fine. I used to be very specific of talking about video games, and then I kind of expanded because a lot of what I talk about really does apply to screens more broadly. If you're struggling to have your kid turn off the TV, it's the same kind of principles and ideas. So this really can apply. And I also kind of broadened because of exactly what you just said. I did an interview once where I heard the recorded interview after the fact, and there was like another commentator who wasn't in my interview. They just like came in afterward.
We hate it when they do that.
So it is interesting because I do think a lot of people have a lot of different definitions. Like I encountered someone once who said like, oh no, my kid doesn't play video games. They just play Roblox. And that really surprised me because I'm like, what? Like to me, that is absolutely a video game. And I do think sometimes we draw those boxes because some of us, I think video game equals bad.
Right.
And therefore I'm going to find some way to say, oh, this is no, it's not a video game. And I think that's also why I try not to always draw as many of those lines, because I'm like, well, if we're talking about screens, let's just talk about screens. And sometimes breaking down some of those potential like boundaries we might put up actually can sometimes help us reframe how we think about some of them. You know, if we think TV is fine and tablet is not fine, it's like, well, why are we actually thinking that?
Right.
Sometimes it can help challenge us and kind of help us reframe that. So I don't necessarily think of them as that different. Other people might. Another reason I don't always like to make distinctions between what kind of game, like a quote unquote educational game, and what we might call an entertainment game, you know, something you're just doing for pleasure, is that again sends the message that one of those things is better than the other. And that might not necessarily be true. Many educational games actually are not very good at teaching. And they also aren't fun. Like they're not very good learning tools and they're also not very fun to play, but we put them under this label and then we somehow think they're better. Whereas a kid might play a game meant for entertainment and actually do some really complex things that really are like full of critical thinking opportunities, but we might say, oh, but that's not educational because we didn't label it that way.
That's too fun to be educational, right? It's supposed to be boring, and right.
Right. Exactly. So to me, sometimes breaking down those barriers can kind of help us maybe reframe how we're thinking about it.
It's sort of the most refreshing thing, speaking for myself, but I know a lot of parents feel the same way about your content, is that you help families reframe screens as a sort of morally neutral or value neutral. You made sort of a statement. I was like, wow, I really need to sit with this. The idea that a kid who's really good at soccer and really enjoys playing soccer and spends a lot of time playing soccer is not using their time better than a kid who really likes gaming and is really good at gaming and is really fulfilled by it. That those are neutral. There isn't like one parent gets an A and one parent doesn't.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think the part at the end there that you said is really key because someone might hear the example you just gave and think, well, but of course soccer is better because it's physical. And I do understand why our brain like kind of go where we go to that space, but we can also recognize that neither one of those things would be good if it was the only activity our kids did.
Yes, I see what you mean.
You know, if all our kid ever did was play soccer, well, they probably should do something else besides play soccer. And when we say yes to soccer, most people know that we're not saying yes to only soccer. But when we say yes to gaming or yes to screen time or yes to iPad at the restaurant, somehow it's like we're saying yes to that all the time. And that's the only thing they do. But if we were to apply that to anything else, it would seem absurd. We know that we don't only do soccer and we don't only do iPad time. Mm-hmm. It exists within a realm of things that we do. And just as soccer might be one part of our kids' life, iPad or video games or whatever might also be one part of their life. And choosing that is a morally neutral decision or I think needs to be a morally neutral decision so that we can really view it as utility, like as a tool. We hear that a lot of like screens are tools, use them like tools. Parents should use them like a tool. Well, you can't really use it like a tool if every time you use that tool, you think, I am not a good parent for using this. Right? If every time you picked up a screwdriver, you thought, oh, but the hammer is the much better tool. I
should be hand twisting this.
Right. If you picked up a drill and you're like, no, I should be using this. I should be doing it by hand. Right. You probably wouldn't use it as often. And so when we put that judgment on it, then it really cannot be a tool and it can't be something that we really view as just another part of our lives if we're always viewing it with a sense of shame.
Mm-hmm. I'm talking to Ash Brandin, the gamer educator. We'll be right back. Hellions, it's time for some spring cleaning, and I don't just mean the coat closets. Doing your financial spring cleaning can actually be super easy when you let Monarch do your financial spring cleaning for you. One dashboard that gets your entire financial life organized. No more clutter, no more mess, no more logins scattered everywhere, just accounts, investments, property, and more, all in one place. Get your first year of Monarch for half off, just $50 with promo code FRESH. Monarch allows you to look not only at what you've already spent, but also to plan for the future. With Monarch, you can set savings goals, plan for big purchases, and notice spending trends before they become a problem. I can generate cash flow reports that show me what we spent this quarter, this month, what we're probably going to spend next month, and feel prepared, organized, and knowing how to plan for the future. No more surprises and a lot more clarity. Try Monarch. Use code FRESH at monarch.com to get your first year half off at just $50. That's 50% off your first year at monarch.com with code FRESH. My favorite skincare products actually feel more like self-care, like they're so nice to put on and they smell so good that I'm actually happy when I get to that part of my day. And I swear that is how I feel about Osea's anti-aging body balm.
Amy, you are usually the lotions and potions queen on this podcast, but I have to say, hard agree.
Osea's anti-aging body balm is a liquid silk body balm that combines the lasting hydration of a lotion with the firming power of a serum, leaving skin smoother and firmer.
This body balm is clinically tested and designed to deliver visible results you can see and feel.
So we've gotten to use this product for a couple of months now, and I swear I have really noticed firmer and smoother skin, like on the back of my hands. It's like getting a mini spa treatment from head to toe.
Get a spring-worthy glow with clean, clinically tested skincare from Osea. And right now, we have a special discount just for our listeners.
Get 10% off your first order site-wide with code FRESH at OseaMalibu.com.
That's 10% off your first order with code FRESH at OSEAMalibu.com.
At DSW, we ask the important questions, like, what shoes are you going to wear? Whether you're prepping for wedding season, festival season, or just planning the ultimate vacay, the right shoes can make or break an RSVP. So own the moment. You've got big plans, and we've got just the shoes, at the perfect price, of course. Get ready to get ready with Designer Shoe Warehouse. Head to your DSW store or DSW.com today and let us surprise you.
So Ash, the reason that some of our listeners said, like, oh, you have to have Ash on the show is that we've had other guests talking about, other things about screens. This was more about social media and the unturn-offableness of it all and, the encroaching nature of it. And you can feel pretty helpless as a parent. I mean, these platforms are designed to be really, really hard to stop playing. And so there's a lot of hand-wringing that can approach that because it's like, it's on you parents, but it's an algorithm that's more powerful than the parent. And so, you approach this again with games being a little bit more neutral, but also that maybe some of the fear-mongering around this is sort of overhyped or based on older studies.
Yeah, I mean, we could have a conversation just about that. Then it could be all we talk about for an hour. But without getting too in the weeds, when we hear a lot of more kind of negative attention grabbing headlines, and also this is sometimes true when it's positive too, it almost always tends to be correlational data, meaning this thing happens and then this other thing happens. But it is almost never causal data, meaning this thing is causing this thing to happen. And something that I think many people might not know or they forget when we're encountering causal data or correlational data around technology, and particularly around video games and screen time, is that screen time and video games are incredibly ubiquitous. There's a study from 1998, which is at this point, a pretty long time ago. And in the 1998, they found that over 90% of adolescents were playing video games. I mean, that's a lot. That's a really high percentage.
I mean, well before the dawn of cell phones when you would be able to have it in your pocket.
Right. And so many studies since then. And this gets back to the earlier question of like, how do you even define a video game anymore? Does a tablet game count? Does Candy Crush count? If I play it once, does that count as being a player or not? But depending how you define it, often the percentage is over 90% of kids and often of younger adults. And sometimes even of older adults, like women aged like 40 to 55 are one of the higher gaming demographics, believe it or not, which I think would surprise a lot of people. And so when you think about, okay, 90% of the population is doing this, then a common question I really love to ask myself is, okay, when I'm hearing this like fear mongering thing of like, oh, it's going to make my gray matter go away or something, I ask myself, does this make sense? Like, it's a very simple reframe, but just, does it make sense? Like, does it make sense that something like, oh, video games in a study, which could be any kind of game for any length of time, right? There's thousands of different kinds of games that are going to affect every person and every brain probably a little differently. Does it make sense that that would cause something like this to like 90% of the population? And oftentimes the answer is like, probably not. That probably doesn't seem like it would be all the way there, at least the way maybe we're hearing sometimes in clips and in news or in social media. There were some very early studies in the early 2000s that did try to show a causal relationship between video games and negative behavioral outcomes. And they actually didn't really find strong statistical evidence. They chose to publish anyway. The most famous and often quoted of these is a 2000 study by Anderson and Dill. I'm just putting that out there in case people recognize it or see it somewhere. But their causal data, I can't remember the technical term in statistics right now, but their data did not have a significant enough outcome to show that it would hold up through repetitive studies. So if it had been repeated, their data results were weak enough to say, we probably wouldn't get this result again. But they still chose to publish, and they still chose to say, well, we think this shows that video games cause negative behavior. And they also conducted the study on adults, college age adults, but they applied their results to children. So they did the study on 18 to 20-year-olds. And then in the results of their study, they wrote, this means that kids are going to be aggressive if they play games. And it's pretty easy to look at that and go, I don't think you can do that.
Sure, right.
Like, I'm pretty sure that's not actually how you can draw conclusions like that. But that study, even now, is still cited. Like, it is extremely pervasive. And when you grow up with that, and when, like, as a elder millennial, as we grow up hearing that in news segments and all the stages that we've gone through of society kind of blaming media for things, it becomes part of your ethos. And that's extremely hard to undo and to unwind. So I don't even know if hearing that is even very helpful for people, because if you've spent that long associating video games or screens with negative things, you might just think, well, okay, fine, the data maybe isn't reliable, but I still think they're bad. And so that's why sometimes I take the stance more of less, let's focus on every single study, and more, let's just recognize that there is value in doing fun things. And that doesn't mean that it's all we ever do. But if we want kids who will be adults who can balance fun things with the rest of their life, then we can help them gain that skill when they're kids. And that's possible to do.
Yeah, I wanted to make one more point because I thought this was so fascinating, something that you underlined in your work about the sort of causation, that you can think things go one way, but it might be the other way. And the example I'm thinking of is people who say like, well, my kid is so dysregulated after they play, right? And I don't want my kid playing video games because they're so cranky and angry afterwards. And you suggest we might be looking at it from the wrong direction.
Yeah. And depending on which thing you're thinking of, I may have said more than one thing, but depending on which way you mean. But what's coming to mind when you say that is a couple of things. One, sometimes we see that. And one way of reframing it is this making my kid dysregulated? Or are they basically trying to help themselves through difficult emotions? Like,
right. That's what I was getting at. Like, oh, bad day in middle school. I'm going to unwind with some, Mario Kart, right? Because I got in a fight with my friend and I'm going to deal with it.
Exactly. If I come home from a bad day, well, sometimes I will play video games, to be honest, but many adults, if they come home from a bad day and they walk in the door and they are like huffing and like, oh, I got in this fight with this coworker and I'm going to go for a run, right? we would look at that and we go, oh, that's very healthy coping, right? You're going to do something to feel that emotion. We probably would not say, you're going to go for a run. Well, you go for a run every time you feel bad. You're always angry when you're running. I think running is making you angry. We probably would not say that because we would probably recognize like, oh, okay, maybe it's going the other way. And that can also be true for things like gaming, especially, I'm glad you brought up middle school, because especially around middle school, like think about a child's day, even at young ages, they are listening all day long. They have very little agency in their day. They're being told what to do, where to go, take out your pencil, put it away, write this down. Why aren't you paying attention? Get back in your seat, stop moving. Like that's a lot. And then when they get older, if you add the whole layer of social, like navigating friends and who said what, and I have 3 minutes in passing period to try to navigate some friend drama. And now I have to go and focus on science. And they have very little time to feel like they have any control over their lives. And video games are actually a space where they can exert a lot of control and feel like they are in control in a pretty safe, regulated environment. And that might be the first time in 8 hours that they are the only one deciding what to do. And the game is not going to yell at them. And the game is not going to judge them. And the game isn't going to say, what are you doing? I told you not to put that over there. If the game doesn't like what you're doing, the game won't let you do it. It's not going to admonish you. It's not going to punish you. It's not going to send you to your room. It's not going to turn itself off. It's just going to say, no, you can't do that.
Yeah, the boundaries are so clear in the gaming world, right? Like you can't go over there. Yeah. And neutral. Yeah.
There's not emotions to the boundaries. It's just like, no, that's a wall. You can try it 50,000 times. It's still going to be a wall. But if that's how you want to spend your day, that's fine. And then you can do whatever you want within those rules. And that is something that a lot of kids don't get in other parts of their lives. Now, if you're someone listening to this and you think, well, and you're coming from more of an I still don't want my kid to play games standpoint, fine. There are many, many ways that kids can get that feeling. My point is they often need that feeling. And sometimes video games are like the lowest hanging fruit of ways to get that feeling. It's easy. I know how to access it. I can maybe do it on my own. I don't have to wait for the neighbor kid to be home or for it to be good weather. It's always kind of available. So that might be why kids are asking for that, because they know it's a quick fix for that feeling. That doesn't mean we have to say yes. And that doesn't mean it's the only way they're going to get that feeling. If we recognize, wow, okay, they do seem to really want to like decompress. Well, we can offer them other ways of doing that. We can say, oh, hey, I noticed you really like playing Minecraft when you get home. I noticed you're always trying to build something. Tomorrow, why don't we try building with some Lego after school instead of Minecraft? And that doesn't mean they're going to like it the same amount. But then we also are showing them, we recognize that this is what you like. We're not saying it's bad. We're trying to find other ways to help them get that same feeling so that then we are also helping them figure out what works for them, what doesn't, what other interests they might have that can go along with their gaming interests alongside it.
It makes so much sense to me. Okay, I'm talking to Ash Brandin, the gamer educator. We'll be right back.
Amy, when I'm having a good hair day, it usually makes my whole day better. And that's why on every day, I'm taking Nutrafol.
Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist-recommended hair growth supplement brand. And it's the #1 hair growth supplement brand personally used by dermatologists. Nutrafol's hair growth supplements are peer-reviewed, NSF certified for sport, and clinically tested.
Nutrafol offers multiple formulas for men and women, tailored to different life stages and lifestyle factors, so you get support that's actually right for you. Adding Nutrafol to your daily routine is easy. Order online, no prescription needed, with automated deliveries and free shipping to keep you on track.
Let your hair be one less thing to worry about. See visibly thicker, stronger, faster-growing hair in 3 to 6 months with Nutrafol.
For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering our listeners $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping when you visit Nutrafol.com and enter promo code LAUGHING.
That's Nutrafol.com, spelled Nutrafol.com, promo code LAUGHING. All my kids learned to swim when they were little. It was super important to me that they be confident and safe in the water. There was only one problem with that: taking them to swim lessons. I mean, the pools were freezing. There were always cranky adults doing laps right there. And it was definitely not, for any of us, what you would call fun.
Amy,
Heard. But now there's Goldfish Swim School. Goldfish takes a really thoughtful approach to swim lessons, combining research-based teaching with a warm, kid-friendly environment that actually helps kids thrive in the water.
Every detail at Goldfish is thoughtfully designed to create a golden experience, from shiver-free, warm indoor pools to comfy waiting areas for parents to professionally trained lifeguards on deck.
Goldfish uses an approach called the science of swim play, which combines guided play with proven teaching techniques to help kids learn to swim, build water safety skills, and gain confidence, all at their own pace. Lessons are designed to meet kids exactly where they're at.
If you've been thinking about swim lessons or just wondering where to start, this is a great opportunity. Right now, Goldfish Swim School is offering a waived membership plus your child's first lesson free at participating locations.
Just visit goldfishswimschool.com/free to find a location near you and enroll using promo code FREE.
That's goldfishswimschool.com/free, promo code FREE. All right. So Ash, in part 3, we love moving to solutions. And that's something you provide in great amount of helping parents, families. I was going to say helping parents put parameters around game time, but it's not. It's creating systems that work for literally everyone in the family.
Absolutely. I kind of mentioned this earlier when I talked about gaming or screens as a tool. And this is another reframe I do a lot, is that when thinking about, what's the right amount, what's too much, what should I allow my child to play or watch? What helps me is asking, instead of how much or what, is instead asking, are we using screens in a way that lets everyone get their needs met? And I find that to be a very powerful question, because let's say that you are trying to make dinner and you put on an episode of, Paw Patrol. And let's say that when it's time to turn it off, your child then has a 45-minute meltdown. Well, I got 30 minutes of time and now I'm having to invest 45 minutes of time. So maybe that isn't worth it, right? Like maybe that is not worth it to me. And the next step to me is not to then say, oh, I knew it. Like this is Paw Patrol's fault. It's the TV's fault. It's the game's fault, because that doesn't help anyone. Like if it makes you feel better, go for it. But that doesn't make tomorrow any better, right? That's not going to help your child with that feeling. It's also not going to make it any easier for you to navigate this without the use of a screen necessarily. Instead, we can get curious and say, okay, that didn't work. So what can we try differently? Maybe we try slightly less time. Maybe we try, 1 mini episode instead of 2. If we're playing a game, maybe we try 5 fewer minutes, right? Maybe we try something else. Maybe we say, you know what? Yesterday we watched Paw Patrol. That didn't go so well. So today let's try watching other show. Or, hey, it was really, really hard for you to stop playing Minecraft yesterday. I think it's because it's this really big open world. So today we're going to play Mario Kart. And when the race is done, we're going to have dinner. Because that way you're saying, okay, we're going to try something with a more finite ending to see if maybe the format has anything to do with it or the structure. And then we're being much more like investigative and figuring out, how do I make this work for me? And how do I also make it work for my kid? Because again, then the conversation we can be having with our kid is, what are we noticing? I noticed it seemed easier for you to stop playing today. We could say, like, how did it feel for you? Was it easier? Was it harder? How was it different? And then helping them notice, oh, okay, so it was easier when you got to the end of a level. It was easier when you had a clear stopping point. I wonder, would it help if I gave you a 5-minute reminder when you're playing Minecraft? Let's try that tomorrow and see how it goes. So then we're still being clear of we're still going to end, right? We're still going to end, but you get to try again, because if we want this to work for us and we are trying to find a way to let this be part of our kids' lives, then it's, again, problem solving in a way that gives our kids skills to navigate this eventually one day on their own. Because I want a kid who can go to college and say, sorry, I have to stop. I have a midterm, and get up and leave, right? I don't want a kid who moves into the dorm who has no experience managing this, who then is like, oh my gosh, I finally get to play video games as much as I want for the first time in my life. I'm never going to go to class. I don't want that.
Right.
I want a kid who can say, oh no, I'm fine. It'll be here when I get back, and has built up those skills to get there. And the reason I say it's important to think about how it's benefiting a whole family is that as the adult or the caregiver, your needs also get to matter, and they should matter, because we often are using screens to fill in a gap, to fill in a lack of childcare or not having, enough present adults for all the children around, or I need to make dinner, or I need 5 minutes to not be talked to. And that gets to matter too. Like that should count too in part of this conversation. So if it's helping you meet your needs, and that's also allowing you to meet your kids' needs, then I would say that screen is benefiting the whole family. If it's causing more problems than it's worth, then we can problem solve and we can see, can we make this work for us?
So let's talk a little bit about older kids, because my kids are older, but when you're moving out of the sort of like, okay, Paw Patrol is over, and sort of the parent has the authority because the parent really does know best. Mom really does want what's best for me. At some point that wears off, and you have these kids who they will play all day or all night. They've got the spiral eyes going. They're very deep down the rabbit hole of whatever they're playing. And it can be deeply distressing when you say to turn it off. And I have come to understand this for myself. I'm not a gamer that you can't just say like it's 6 o'clock, you have to turn it off. I've had to learn the amount of distress that you'll feel if mom says you have to stop playing right now when you've put 25 minutes into something is great. So how do you suggest that parents of older kids that will probably just react like, shut up, you can't do that. They will resist maybe the end of game time. How do you help those older kids sort of find that ending for themselves?
A lot of what you're describing has more to do with game structure. Like obviously the way they're going to talk is going to be a lot different when they're older, but a lot of that is game structure. So like open-ended games and a lot of social games, which definitely comes up with older kids who are wanting to play with each other. So then it feels like, if they quit, it's like they literally disappear. It's as if they were playing outside. We just yanked them back in the house. And then also if their friends are depending on them, there's that aspect. Yeah. So it's complex, right? The whole social aspect and things like that. Right. But just knowing some of that structure can also be really helpful. So if you have a finite amount of time, sometimes I'm always shocked at the things that to me feel so obvious that I'm like, oh, apparently I should have said that out loud. Like I thought it was really obvious when I said I'm going to make dinner that means that dinner's probably in like a reasonable amount of time and not in like 4 hours, but apparently I needed to say it out loud. And I work in middle school and I often joke that if you should cover up the tens digit in their age to get their real inner emotional age.
That might be the smartest thing I've ever heard anybody say in this podcast. The one is silent. I got it.
Yeah, exactly. Because like when I'm dealing with an 8th grader, I'm like, if I pretend you're 3, this will go probably a lot better. No offense.
That's so smart. I have older kids and if I'm yelling up the stairs to them at 6:30 or 7, they'll hear me yelling and they'll say, what? And I'll, say it's dinner, whatever. And then they pretend they're super mad at me later that they didn't hear that me say that it was dinner. I'm like, I know you heard me. It's like 6:45. What did you think I was yelling about? But yeah, take 10 years off. And then they didn't realize it was dinner time.
So with that in mind, I'm like, okay, I do need to make this really clear. So it might be like, hey, okay, we have 30 minutes. So, or however, we have whatever amount of time. We have this amount of time. What is it you want to get done in this amount of time? Because then essentially what we're having them do is we're having them make a goal and we're having them do some end design thinking of what is it you want to do today? And if they're like, I don't know, it's like, okay, tell me one thing. Maybe it's something you want to feel. Maybe it's a person you want to play with. Maybe it's a place on the map you want to go. Maybe it's a campaign you want to run. I don't know. I'm just, then have them come up with one thing. Okay. That's one thing you want to do. When we have 5 minutes, 10 minutes left, whatever, I'm going to say, you have 5 minutes. Make sure you've done your thing. Make sure you've gotten your thing done. You have 5 more minutes to get your thing done. Another question I love to ask, which is extremely helpful, I think, with open-ended things, not just games, but projects, is how will you know when you're done? And I use that in middle school all the time when it's we're getting the end of the class period, but we're working on something huge. And I'm like, okay, how will you know when you're done today? Because it just gives them an off ramp. And sometimes I will literally say, we are going to write on a sticky note what you're going to pick up with tomorrow, where you ended, so that you can come right back in tomorrow and be like, oh yeah, I was doing this. And for a kid who might like really open, huge video games, like I'm playing Zelda right now, me and like 10 million other people are playing Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. And I sometimes need that for myself. Like I have to like put myself in a specific part of the map so that when I open it back up, I'm like, oh yeah, this is what I was doing.
Oh,
So like, depending on your kid and who they are, you could write it on a sticky. Okay, tomorrow, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to go to the shrine, write it down. And it might not mean anything to you, but it might mean something to them. And then the next day say, hey, okay, do you want to go to the shrine today? That's what your sticky note says. And they're like, oh, okay, great. And again, then we can have that conversation of like, how was that? Did it help? Did it make it easier to stop when you knew what you could do tomorrow? Did it make it easier to stop when you had a warning? Did it make it easier to stop when you set a goal for today? And if they say no, then it's okay, should we try that again or should we try something else? Because then we're still building in that feeling of the boundary is not going to go away. We are still going to exist within limits. And it is my job to help you navigate those limits.
Mm-hmm. It's the perfect example to me of how any gaming can be educational, right? Having your teenager, your tween or whatever, they start to think of it with this sort of end, what did you call it? End design?
It's a common term in education is like design thinking or end in mind thinking of like starting with the goal and working your way back to the beginning.
And for your kid to have learned that skill is extremely educational. Yes.
Yes. And chances are they've probably done that in another part of their lives. They've probably done that in a big project, or maybe they haven't, but then you introduce it to them in this way. And the message that sends to our kids is not, my parents think video games are the best thing in the world. They probably know that like, okay, that's probably not our favorite thing that our kids do, but we accept it as part of their lives. But they will probably get from that interaction with us of realizing, okay, my adult takes this seriously. My adult takes my interests seriously. And I think that's a really important message to send to kids, especially, and I do think this relates to other guests you've had, talking about things like internet safety. A huge part of internet safety for a lot of kids is the way they talk to each other when they play online, or chat messages that they send online, or just audio messages to each other when they're playing games online. And if we care about that, and if we want our kids to be safe when they encounter that, whenever that is, it might not be till they're in high school, but when they do eventually encounter that, if we want them to be safe in that, we probably also want them to come to us when things are not safe. And it's probably going to be harder for them to come to us and tell us those things if the message they get from us is, well, my adult just thinks video games are bad or a waste of time. If a kid comes to us and says, hey, my friend said this thing when we were playing Fortnite and it really made me uncomfortable. If the reaction they get is, I knew it. It's always Fortnite.
That's it, young man. Right.
Right. They're always hearing bad things in Fortnite, not when you're playing together. The message we're sending is this is a problem with the video game. And the message our kid is trying to send us is I'm hearing something from a friend that I didn't like. And what we're glomming onto is it's the video game's fault.
Darn Fortnite. Well, right.
And it's like, if we really hear through to the problem, then we can talk about it the same way we would if a kid heard something over on a phone call or in person or in the hallway. And yes, we can talk to our kids about the way we talk to people online should be the way we talk to them in person. That's also an important conversation. But the safety aspect of I need to take this seriously, that can start with just taking their interest seriously and helping them manage it in a way that, again, benefits us as a family.
I have learned so much from you today, Ash. We've been talking to Ash Brandin, the gamer educator on Instagram. So Ash, tell our listeners where they can find you and your work and everything that you do.
I exist on the internet, mostly on Instagram at The Gamer Educator. And you can find me there talking all things screens and management and making it work for you. And thank you so much for having me.
Oh, this has been great. Thanks, Ash.
When I need to impress someone with a gift, I go straight to 1-800-Flowers. There's a reason they've spent 50 years as the floral authority. Every stem is hand-selected by a vetted florist, and with same-day delivery nationwide, 100% satisfaction guaranteed. That's why millions go to 1-800-Flowers to celebrate life's most important moments. Order now for up to 40% off. Don't miss out on this limited time offer. Act now and save up to 40% at 1-800-Flowers.com/Spotify. That's 1-800-Flowers.com/Spotify.